Can you say friends, talking, nerdy? Close enough.
If your friends are nerdy and you are nerdy too, I want to talk to you. Friends Talking Nerdy.
Welcome to Friends Talking Nerdy. This is Tim the Nerd, and seated next to me we have Professor Aubrey. And during the course of this episode, I'm going to tell you, Professor Aubrey, about all of the friends I have in low places where the whiskey drowns and the beer chases our blues away. But we'll be okay.
Well, that's because I don't know much about social graces. But if you take me down to the Oasis, I'll let you meet my friends. They're all in low places.
There you go. Garth Brooks, everybody.
Yeah, we both just did that off the top of our head.
Yeah.
That's very sad.
Oh, I like that song. If you compare songs to food, this song is a bologna sandwich. But sometimes a bologna sandwich can just be the thing that hits the spot.
No to bologna. Did you know that bologna was invented as a Russian meat product that could be mass-produced with not a lot of meat to be sold or to be given to the proletariat?
Okay, but you also do know that what I meant by bologna sandwich was just more of the very, very, very simple generic food that's not a gourmet dish. So you can replace bologna...
Mac and cheese.
Yes, you can replace bologna with mac and cheese. And that's what that song is. I'm defending it, baby. But this week, we're going to be talking about friendship. You know, especially in Portland, it seems. One thing I see on threads a lot, you have a lot of people checking in from Portland stating it's hard to make friends. And, you do growing up, when you're going through the schooling experience in the States here, I'm sure it's the same overseas as well. You are with a whole bunch of people for a very long period of time. And then by the time schooling ends and you get out into the real world, you discover it can be hard to make friends.
Absolutely. It was hard for me to make friends even in high school.
Me here for the most part too. I mean, I was lucky enough, being 6'5".
Mm-hmm.
If I were like 5'5", I would have had my butt kicked many times in school. But 6'5", I was at least the perfect height where people weren't really sure if I was going to turn out to, have like Mike Tyson skills or something like that. But if they tried to challenge me, blah blah blah. Spoilers, they would not have had anything to worry about. But
Yeah.
Yeah, look at these guys. But, making friends has always been hard, I guess, but it depends on how you look at it as well. I think back in the day, too, during schooling, you felt it was important to have as big a friend group as possible, whereas the older I've gotten, the more I've realized it's more important just to have people in your life that you can trust, and if that just means a few people, then it's a few people.
Yeah, I mean, I hear that. My experience in college was that I met a lot of great people, and the ways that I met them was, it was always through other friends, right? You make one friend, it leads to other friends. That was sort of the way right after high school. I think it was pretty easy to make friends in college as well. After college, you make friends at work. Hopefully after work, you make friends with people that you do activities with.
Which, we've talked about, and, I can tell you from experience, that is vitally important to have. You don't want to find yourself to where all of your friends, your entire friend group, also are your workmates. Because you need people in your life that you can just do something else with and, relax and just breathe and not have to worry about the stresses of your 9 to 5, whatever that 9 to 5 is.
Yeah.
So what we have done here is, thanks to our friends at Psychology Today, compiled a list of bullet points to talk about in terms of friendship, gaining friendship, the work it takes to maintain friendships, and stuff like that. This is work that this is a list that we've compiled based on a couple of different articles, so we're not going to name them here, but if you go to our show description, we will have a link to each of the articles that we do discuss here, but we wanted to have a kind of a counterpoint situation to kind of just open it up and start that conversation about ultimately the importance of friends. Again, it doesn't have to be a huge list, but it is important to have people in your life, and I can say I've learned that a lot from being a dog handler. Not every dog that goes into a doggy daycare is excited about being there, shock of all shocks. There are some that are, just as introverted as I was back in high school, if not more. But it was still important to have that, that social experience, even though the dog in question didn't necessarily participate much.
Right.
But any thoughts before we dive into our lists here?
No, I think we should head right to it.
Yes, promptness, baby. Promptness. So, first point I want to bring up here, friendships rarely happen by accident. Research shows that people who believe friendship is based on luck or fate tend to be lonelier, while those who see it as something that requires effort are more likely to make meaningful connections. This mindset shift encourages people to actively seek out and cultivate relationships instead of waiting passively for them to form. You can kind of say the same thing about dating as well. If you're sitting in your house like, I wonder when the ladies will approach me. They're not going to. You have to put yourself out there in order to get them, for lack of a better phrase.
Well, sure, you've got to be going someplace and doing something. Like, you're not going to meet anybody if you're just sitting in your house doing nothing and not talking to anybody. But what I might disagree with is that sometimes something magical does happen. And I don't think that you should, well, I don't know. It's like, do you spend a lot of time trying to orchestrate things with people? Or do you just make yourself available both energetically and physically? Such that people who are attracted to you for friendship or whatever, they just click and you don't have to work really hard at it.
Yeah, and those moments are always great. Now the cynic in me would not necessarily call that like a magical moment or fate or anything like that, but that does not negate the feelings that happens when you do find that person that you instantly click with, whether it's a platonical friendship or something more. So at the end of the day, I agree with you. It's the only thing I'm disagreeing on is more the semantics than anything else.
Right.
Yeah. So high five.
High five.
Yes.
We agree.
And the world is a better place when we agree.
That's right.
All right. I'm going to dive into the next point here. Let's start up some more conversation.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Overcome both overt and covert avoidance. Even when adults attend social events, they often unintentionally block opportunities to connect by sticking to familiar faces, retreating into their phones, or failing to initiate conversation. To truly make new friends, it's crucial to push past the urge to self-isolate and instead introduce yourself, ask thoughtful questions, and stay present with others. As someone who deals with anxiety like I do, especially in crowded situations like a party or something like that, those coping mechanisms of, diving onto your phone or, the avoidance, traits are very easy to go to. Having said that, obviously, yes, I agree with the points here that if you are like sitting in a corner looking at your phone and not paying attention to anybody else, why should you expect anybody to go up and introduce themselves to you? This doesn't mean, of course, that you have to meet everybody in the room or make friends with everybody in the room. And also, too, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if it is like a party situation, if you do deal with anxiety, to have a partner, and I mean partner in a sense of just someone that you could kind of be around to have some level of comfort while you're at that party. Could be a friend, could be, anybody else. But On the flip side, like this mentioned as well, don't be on them like a fly on flypaper.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
you do have to find ways to branch out. And in that particular situation, it could be to where the partner that you're there with to help keep you calm and not dealing with the anxiety could be talking to somebody. And guess what? You can join in the conversation and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I think having that social lubrication
Lubrication.
is really makes things so much easier because most of us are not people who want to walk into a room full of people and start saying, "Hi, my name's Aubrey. Um, I'm teach at a community college. Um, I like your sweater." What is it that you're supposed to say to people when you introduce themselves? But I see extroverts do it all the time, just like it's easy peasy pie. But I think for people like you and me who don't have that kind of energy around social activities, they show us what could be easy, but it's really hard.
Which, when you said that, I got the image in my head of, and I think most people do have stories like this as well, of the times you've had a romantic attraction to somebody, and then you find out like years later that if you had just asked, you would have had, like a relationship. Yeah, it is important to kind of have an example, I guess, a living example, someone that maybe the extrovert that you can be like, oh, if it can happen to this person, maybe it can happen to me if I go up and, try and initiate a conversation or something like that. It can be done, but it can also be very, very, very hard for people to do that as well, even if they know that it could be just as simple as saying, "Hi, my name's Tim. Do you like the weather?"
Right. I think sometimes I put expectations on relationships that have just started. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I meet someone and I want them to appreciate me in some way by like asking me a question about myself. And I want to appreciate them in some way by asking them a question about themselves. That's if we're introduced by somebody else. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I can hold a conversation once it's started by somebody else, but I can't like walk up to somebody and start talking to them about something.
Yeah.
Even if it's a common interest, even if I was staring at a Van Gogh in a museum and somebody walked up, and somebody walked up and was standing next to me, I wouldn't turn to them and say, "Oh my God, are you enjoying the
Do you
Van
see
Gogh?"
the brush strokes in the middle? Oh my God. No, I do get that. Like even, for me, let's bring it up like we always do. Seeing professional wrestling. Being in a crowd of fans, as you're like leaving the arena after a show, my only focus at that point in time is leaving. And yeah, that's most people's focus too at the end of a show. But like that is also a situation to where you could strike up a conversation as you're walking, out the door, or, like during the show, if it's a show that's being taped for television, it could be, during what is a commercial break, you can talk to the people next to you, like think back to when we saw wrestling, I did not do this, but I could have easily turned to the kid with a yeet sign and go, "Great sign, kid."
Right,
And,
exactly.
and like, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's important to realize that it can be done, that people do it all the time, but also I think don't necessarily beat yourself up if you find yourself in a situation and you just can't do it, but it's also important to challenge yourself.
If you never take a chance on something, you'll never get any results.
Exactly. Kind of like the podcast here. It's like if it's going to be guaranteed a failure if we don't produce any more episodes or if we never started the show in the first place. The fact that you keep putting the work in means at some point, depending on what your definition of success is, it will be successful.
Mm-hmm.
All right. How about I dive into the next point here?
Let's hear the next point.
All right. Lean in to the mere exposure effect. One of the most reliable ways to increase your chances of making friends is simply to keep showing up. The mere exposure effect reveals that we tend to like people when we see more often, even if interactions are minimal at first. Consistency in attendance helps build a sense of familiarity and trust over time. Thinking of the times that I have done like in-person like writing groups in the past, which has been years and years and years since I've done that, but they that was a situation to where when I first started, I didn't really say much. I would read whatever work I was reading at the time or listen to other people's work and give my feedback. But like over time, the more you get to know people, then it's not like they ended up becoming like lifelong friends or anything like that, but it was still much more comfortable to be able to have just fun conversations before you talked about your writing.
This doesn't always work, right? So sometimes you can show up and show up and show up, and you're still not picked for the team. Sometimes it does feel like protecting yourself by avoiding things or not forming deeper friendships with people that you spend time with for whatever reason, for doing a book club or for doing a kickball team or whatever. And I've had that experience where one of the first communities I built after my divorce was a dancing community. And going to the same classes with some similar people, but always with the same instructors, really helped me build relationships where I felt like I could go out on a limb and talk about myself and ask them about themselves and know, because they had indicated to me that they were safe people to do that with. And then I think you just build on that,
Yeah.
but it can start with just showing up for the same thing.
Exactly, and think about like work friendships too, and because even though I've cautioned against having your entire social circle be work friends are definitely a vital thing to have and can make the worst of jobs much more tolerable.
Yeah. But they're still work friendships.
Exactly. I mean, there are people that I do have great memories of, if we go back to the Apple example again, I didn't hate everybody there. There were definitely some good people that helped, make the days go by a lot faster because it could just be a simple conversation about, the movie you saw at a theater, the previous night, or just something to just keep the day a little more bright. Any other thoughts, or should I go on?
Let's go on to number 4.
All right, number 4. Believe that people like you. Many adults fall into what psychologists call the liking gap, where we underestimate how much others enjoy our company. This negative assumption can cause us to act more distant or self-conscious. In contrast, if you assume people like you, you're more likely to act warmly and openly, behaviors that actually make people like you more. Guilty. I am the type of person that generally is like, oh, why would they want to know a person like me? And, I guess it does come out physically, when I'm thinking that in my head at that particular time. So I can definitely see the importance of that, even if you're going under the mantra of fake it till you make it. Now granted, of course, not everybody wants or even desires to have a huge social network. So I'm not, saying to people to, like beat yourself up until you have, tons and tons of friends or something like this. But, you're, to kind of piggybacking off of what you said before, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get any results. And if you do want a friend, then, you have to give them what you want in return, and that's warmness.
Well, and not only that, you have to develop, if you see people and they are confident and they seem to be having more friends than you or having things in their life that you would like, and the main difference seems to be a social one, then, that's important to notice. What I was thinking, though, is that I think I'm sure that they're not liking me. And so I think about what if I'm right? Right. What is all this power positive thinking? Who cares if I'm right that they don't like me? And so that sort of protective, I'm not going to engage with people because they're going to ultimately not like me, is obviously self defeating.
Yeah. something I'm very much guilty over myself. This is something, I guess, that, like, you do have to see the logic in it, I guess. You know, yeah, if you do want people to like you, you have to give them something to like. And on first impressions, you know, if you're sitting there like glowering, you got your arms folded and you're like looking at your phone, people aren't necessarily gonna feel that need to want to approach you.
Yeah. But let's just be realistic about the fact that approaching people is one of the most terrifying things that someone could ask you to do.
Oh my God, like, if I saw a stranger on the road with a friend stalking nerdy t-shirt on, I would still be scared to talk to them. So I definitely get that.
I get that too. And I guess I'd just say, there has been research that shows that people totally underestimate the amount of like that they get from people. Like everybody thinks they're less popular or less likable than they actually are. And so, you keep that in mind that it's just a perception. It's just your own perception.
And you can't necessarily take that as fact because, like, something somewhat similar, I guess, into what you were talking about in terms of statistics. Like, most people that are drivers think they're better drivers than they actually are.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it's important to not fall into that trap of, thinking that, I guess.
Yeah.
All right. Shall I go on?
Yeah, let's go on.
All right. Be the one to initiate. While it can feel vulnerable, being the person who asks someone to grab a coffee or proposes a follow-up hangout often strengthens connections. Initiating signals intentionality and creates a sense of exclusivity that helps transform casual acquaintances into deeper friendships. It can definitely be vulnerable. It can definitely be scary because, like, let's take a work friend situation. You can have people that you have great conversations with at work, but you never ever hang out with outside of work. And, it can be vulnerable, even if it's asking someone in a platonical way, do you want to hang out sometime after work or do a D&D type of thing and something like that? You could feel like, are they going to say no? Are they going to be upset that I said this? Are they going to think that I'm overstepping my bounds in terms of thinking we're more friends than we actually are?
And all of that is just like stuff in your head. It's not reality, right?
Yeah.
But again, it's hard to be the one that says, hey, do you want to go get coffee sometime? And people will actually say that to me, certainly more than I say it to them. And I always feel excited, like, oh, somebody asked me to coffee. I can't wait to go to coffee. But then when it comes around to, I'm like, oh, the coffee. Do I really want to go to the coffee? And so I never invite anybody to do anything because I know that I probably am not going to want to do it when it occurs.
I get that. There have been plenty of times to where I've had a social activity out with people, and just for whatever reason, my head is telling me, stay home, don't leave the house. Yeah, like back when I was, more active in dating and stuff like that, there were times where I had like an initial first date set up, and then just something just told me in the head, nope, you're going to be playing video games tonight, and, go on from there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even people who expressed interest in you, you had it set up and everything. They had agreed to meet you.
Yeah. But
Did you let them know, or did you just stand them up?
it depends on the situation. I mean, like, if we're talking someone I was meeting for the first time, I would probably stand them up. Like, if we're talking somebody you've only met with via chatting, okay,
You're okay with standing somebody up
yeah,
who's gotten dressed and gotten in their car and driven across town to meet you.
no, okay, then we're talking about kind of two separate things here. I'm not talking about that per se, but just the whole, like, if you're chatting with somebody and yeah, if you're just not feeling it in terms of somebody you matched with on a dating app, for example.
Right. That's all fine. I'm saying,
Yeah.
do you stand somebody up
No. Okay,
going
then.
out of their way to like meet you, or do you at least let them know I'm not going to be able to make it just, I'm not going to be able to make it tonight.
No,
I'm really sorry.
that I don't do, no. Because, yeah, it would be a dick move to have somebody, go out of their way to go to, like, a coffee shop or a restaurant or something like that, and then you don't tell them at that fact. That I did not do.
Okay.
Yeah. But they're not talking to him again plenty of times.
Sure. And
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. It's really fun.
You don't owe anybody anything.
Damn right. All right. Shall I wrap up the list here?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Since we're the friendly type tonight, talking to our friends at home.
Yes.
All right. Express genuine liking. Telling someone you enjoy talking with them, complimenting a trait you admire, or simply thanking them for their time can go a long way. These small acts of affirmation trigger what's known as the theory of inferred attraction. People tend to like those who they believe like them, so genuine expressions of appreciation can jumpstart meaningful bonds. And I will say this advice out there to any woman that is interested in a guy in any way, shape, or form. Compliment them. I can guarantee you that guy has heard less than a tenth of the compliments that you have heard over the years. If you compliment that guy, he's going to be, what is that skunk's name in Bambi?
Oh, I don't know. I never watched Bambi because it terrified me.
Yeah, no, there's a skunk in there is a friend of Bambi, and I'm just thinking of, like, when you compliment a guy, you'd be like that skunk going, really? Guys don't get compliments. So, in that particular instance, again, the advice I give to women, if you compliment a guy, he's going to be like a puppy that you've given raw meat to. He will be your best friend for life. But also, too, yeah, like, if you are, like, meeting up with somebody and, you talk about books during that thing, and then, doing something as simple as, hey, you got great taste in books.
Yeah.
Shows you're paying attention.
Yeah.
And, yeah, to the point of that I was trying to make there, that, yeah, when people feel like that they're being valued, then that's going to make that relationship mean more.
Mm-hmm.
Platonic or otherwise.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts?
Well, you have to be completely genuine. You cannot do this if you are not genuinely thinking the things you are saying. So it's not as easy as coming up with an affirmation for someone. It's actually needing to be inspired by someone to think, oh my gosh, they're so good at bookkeeping, and I'm so terrible at bookkeeping. You're such a great bookkeeper. You know what I'm saying? Like, just because I meet somebody and I think I want to be friends with them doesn't mean I have to tell them that their chocolate chip cookie is the best one I've ever had. Do you know what I'm saying?
It's so amazing. Where'd you get your recipe? Pillsbury? Wow. You don't want to be disingenuous, and I think, the more genuine you are with your compliments, the more honest you are with your compliments, the better it will be received at the end of the day, because people do have bullshit meters. So, some are more sensitive than others, but, people can sense bullshit when it's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's just important, folks, to have friends. It's not about how many, but you want to cultivate the friendships that you do have. What do you think?
I agree with you completely.
All right. I love when I hear that. Everything. Yeah, nothing more to say. You said it so eloquently.
I mean, sometimes that happens.
Yes.
Where I get tripped up with friends, for me, the challenge is keeping in touch with the friends that I already have from various contexts. And I feel like for me, it's going from context to context to context. And it's hard for me to hang on to the friends I had in a prior context, if you know what I'm saying.
In terms of, you have a different relationship now with a potential high school friend than you would have with somebody that you worked at your first law firm with, or
Right.
somebody that you're currently working with, or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That can happen. I mean, if we do end up going to Grand Rapids, one person who would probably meet is my friend Chris. Known him since high school. Is one of those dear friends that, you don't have to talk every day, and he and I generally don't, but you can put us back in the same room, and it's like the first time we ever met. Just talk and talk and talk and all that stuff. Also just people grow, people change over time, and there are some people that I knew in high school that I'm sure are great people, but doesn't mean I would like them now necessarily because I'm a different person. We all grow. And, like we've talked many times too about, getting over that idea in romantic relationships that, you're going to be with this person forever. It's great if that is the case, but statistics show breakups can and do occur fairly regularly. And, the same can be said for friends. You're not guaranteed to have a person in your life for eternity, but it is important to put in the work to maintain the friendships that you do have. Don't beat yourself up if some friends go away, if your paths diverge, but, self-reflect too. You don't want to push people away and think, I'm the greatest human being on the face of the earth. You do want to have some self-reflection as to, could I have done something to do that? And I've done that on plenty of occasions myself personally, but make friends. Friends are important in your life.
Absolutely. They're absolutely important.
Now, friends that I had in the past included, characters that I fell in love with and related to, and stuff like that. And so before we wrap things up, wanted to talk about a documentary and a viewing experience we had about one Mr. Paul Reubens.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a documentary on HBO Max called Pee-wee as Himself. It was a documentary that Paul Reubens did. It's a two-parter, and it's essentially his life story. And it was fascinating from beginning to end. As a kid, I was a Pee-wee fan until I got goofed on about it. And the kid who introduced me to Pee-wee, him and I had a fight back in 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, not one of my prouder moments, but Pee-wee was definitely everywhere in the 80s.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I loved Pee-wee from the very beginning, from the stage show time that was on HBO late at night, and was absolutely hilarious, I thought, as a 12-year-old or however old I was. That would have been 86, right? So that's probably about when it happened.
Well, I'm sure they replayed it in 86. I'm not saying they didn't, but the stage show on HBO that was filmed at the Roxy was filmed in 81.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure they played it for a long time after that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Just because HBO used to do that. Right. So I loved the stage show. And then I tried to like the cartoonish one, but I just didn't because for me, Pee-wee was kind of naughty. He wasn't just this happy-go-lucky kid show. That's what my experience was. Had I never experienced the stage show, I probably would have loved him and thought he was hilarious. I loved the movies.
I have not seen any of the movies myself.
Yeah, Pee-wee's Big Adventure is great. Big Top Pee-wee, also great.
Yeah, they did talk about in the documentary that scene from Big Top Pee-wee to where he wanted to film the longest kiss in film history and how he thought that was funny, but studio executives were not happy with that result, which, did get a laugh out of me because sometimes in comedy it could be just those long takes that can bring out the laughs.
Yeah.
My first experience with Pee-wee Herman ultimately was the Saturday morning show, which did have some cartoon elements, but a lot of it was him as well. It wasn't the Hammerman cartoon with a cartoon version of MC Hammer or anything like that. As the documentary showed, he was very much involved with the creation of the show and the messages he wanted to portray. Now, you did watch the first episode of Pee-wee's Playhouse with me.
Yep.
What was your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. I loved the theme song. I forgot how much I liked the theme song. I love that movie. No, that was in the stage show, actually. I was like, I love that movie about the giant piece of chocolate cake. But that was from the live show.
No, the first episode had where Pee Wee made ice cream soup.
Right, ice cream soup, which is just chocolate sauce and ice cream, vanilla ice cream.
But stir it together.
And you stir it together. I mean, I think everybody's made ice cream soup.
Yeah. That's probably where I got the idea for ice cream soup. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, I've had ice cream soup and I never watched that. So it's just if you mix in the chocolate, it just turns into soup.
Yeah. Now, as an older person now, compared to when it first hit the air in '86, did watching that first episode maybe change your opinion on the show?
I definitely think I would like it if I watched it now. I would think it was funny and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's not something I'm going to necessarily revisit in terms of doing a binge watch or anything like that, but good to hear that your opinion changed on the show, because I know you were a little apprehensive to watch it. I think you were like, okay, Tim, I'll watch it just so you'll never mention it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely liked it more than I thought I would.
Well, that's good. That's good. Lots of celebrities in that episode. And thinking about in '86, like a lot of those celebrities weren't as big of names as they ultimately ended up becoming. Because Captain Carl, played by Phil Hartman, this was the year before he first joined Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
He was there. One Larry Fishburne. Lawrence Fishburne as Cowboy Curtis. The King of Cartoons, played by the guy who played Blackula in the '70s. That was brought up in the documentary, otherwise I would not have known that. One of the little kids on the show was a young Natasha Lyonne, who is currently having a bit of a career resurgence the past 5 years or so, thanks to the Peacock show Poker Face.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of a whodunit type of show, I believe, produced by Ryan Johnson, who did the Knives Out film.
Right.
Yeah, so in terms of the writing sharp, edgy, and all that stuff, but lots of famous people definitely appeared on that show. But like one thing they pointed out in the documentary was from the very start, Pee-wee did make it a point to have diversity in the show in a lot of ways. You know, diversity into, like, the young kids were not all white kids or something like that.
Right.
And basically he wanted to show in the Playhouse the importance of enjoying being different. You know, embracing yourself, having fun, and accepting the fact that there's beauty in diversity, that if everything was homogenized, it'd be kind of boring.
Yeah, and I think Pee-wee was great at conveying passion about things. You know, he just gets so excited about things.
Like the tinfoil ball.
Yeah. Or the magic word. Like, you know, he's just excited to scream every time somebody says the magic, says
The secret word.
the secret word.
Yeah, the first word on the first episode was door. So,
Door.
yeah, everybody would go nuts with that. But going back to Paul Reubens, though, and Pee-wee, I mean, you know, I think that's one reason why Paul Reubens wanted to make this documentary. It is, you know, he had two major incidents in his life that involved law enforcement that, you know, we are aware of. The first incident happened in the early '90s. It was after Pee-wee's Playhouse wrapped up, but they were still showing repeats on CBS at the time. And that was when he was arrested outside of a Florida porno theater, because they had an officer doing undercover work on the inside who claimed that, you know, Pee-wee was jacking it to a movie in the theater.
Which, that's why people go to those theaters.
Yeah. Yeah. If you do...
But, like, who the fuck cares?
I mean, that's ultimately what people, I think the general public, even at that time, kind of I think that was the consensus. Like, who cares? A lot of people made jokes, and they brought up the fact that the year that happened, Pee-wee actually went to the MTV Video Music Awards, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "Heard any good jokes lately?" So it was cool that he at least was able to work through it, and but yeah, I think people. I remember in the '90s, it was just like, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's like
He's an entertainer. He's not a politician. He's not somebody that we're trying to trust. He's an entertainer.
yeah, and he did definitely have. He'd had connection with kids, and obviously he was still selling toys and all that stuff at that particular time. But he also did have kind of he did have a different relationship with kids than like a Mr. Rogers as a kid show host, because of the fact that he did work as Pee-wee in more adult themes in other areas like the stage show or the movies or something like that. So kind of a different relationship there too. I think it may have been a bigger story if like Mr. Rogers was arrested, for tracking at a porno theater or something like that. I think people were just thought he was an adult, and it's like, yeah, at the end of the day, go to a private booth, if you're doing that. But yeah, it was not that big of a deal. The second one was, I think, in the early 2000s, to where are you familiar with the actor? I believe his name is Jeffrey Jones, played the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that guy was a bad human being.
Oh, really?
Child molester.
Oh, God.
Yeah. It's just that during the investigation that they were doing on him, some people started saying some stuff about Paul Reubens. And when it all came to pass, Paul ended up getting on a sex offender list and getting like a year probation or something like that. But as the documentary showed, the only reason he really didn't fight it was because his parents were sick at the time. And he really didn't do anything wrong. This was a case of a district attorney trying to go after a celebrity for the headlines. I guess the DA in question was also maybe, I believe they said he was like on the ballot for mayor as well or something like that. So he was trying to help out his own political career by trying to go after a celebrity. And it's just Pee-wee didn't want to put the extra, Paul Reubens did not want to put the extra stress on his parents.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, basically took a plea deal that made his life hell, but didn't see him like go to jail or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason why he did the documentary was to get that more of that information out, because they actually showed some of the pieces that were taken by the police during their investigation, because, after an investigation, it's your property, they have to give it back.
Mm-hmm.
So none of what was taken was anything that I would even remotely consider, the illegal images of a child naked or anything like that. He was not doing what they said he did. They screwed him. They screwed him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, DAs, it's all political.
Which I think is something to think about. I mean, we've definitely brought it up very briefly in the past in terms of, district attorney is a position that you vote for. And if you are not doing your best to, vet the people that you vote for, you could have a very bad district attorney out there making some very, very bad choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ultimately, Paul Reubens will go down as a pop culture icon. He did a lot of great work in the 80s. I have a lot of respect for him for going along with this documentary, because even in the documentary, he was kind of making it clear that it wasn't something he was necessarily comfortable with. But I do think the fact that he didn't go with the self-congratulatory documentaries that some people would do on their own lives, the fact that he did have a documentarian that was willing to push him on things makes it to where, hearing even the hard stuff that happened to him in his life, you believe him more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you get a vision of them as a person.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not self-congratulatory or anything like that, but overall, one hell of a documentary, and it definitely got me going down the nostalgia road in terms of revisiting some Pee-wee Herman related stuff.
Yeah, loving Pee-wee.
That's right. Any thoughts on your end about the documentary you want to bring up?
Well, I really liked it, and I thought the part where he was, talking about that he wanted to direct it himself, but the studio wouldn't let him direct it himself, and we demanded he get a director, and so he found this guy and decided that he was trustworthy enough to be the documentarian, but all along the way, he's like, "Why are you asking that question?" Or like, "That's not the important part of this." So I thought that was an interesting dynamic throughout the thing.
I think some of it too was him just clearly putting on a person. I think he was joking in some of it, where he was trying to do the whole celebrity insulting type of deal, like how dare you ask someone as important as me a question like that, or but yeah. But there were also serious parts to where they showed clips of him and the director kind of hashing it out, not like, like yelling at each other or anything like that, but they both clearly had two different versions of what they wanted. But at the end of the day, if Paul Reubens ultimately didn't want this to go, even, near the very end of his life, it would not have gone out. So I definitely respect him for allowing himself in the last years of his life to have his life openly discussed, warts and all.
Yeah.
Yeah. One other side note before we wrap things up here. I'm a fan of Kathy Griffin. I'd try to get you to become a fan, and that's not going to happen. But
I just don't think she's funny.
yeah. I get that too. Like a lot of her humor is topical. So if it's something you're not familiar with, why are you going to laugh, right?
Right.
But she actually, we've brought this up on the past. Like she got into a lot of hot water early in the first Trump presidency when she had that photo with her holding the head of a Trump lookalike doll that was covered in ketchup.
Mm.
Dumb thing for her to do. Like most of her comedy revolves around her talking about interactions with celebrities. So doing a hardcore political picture like that, it's like she was able to exercise her First Amendment rights, but she should have expected at least some form of blowback. Did she need death threats? No, she did not. But I don't think that was a good move.
Well, it certainly didn't work out well for her.
It did not, no. But one person that actually contacted her when the whole brouhaha was occurring was Paul Reubens.
Oh.
And, similar to what people did for him when he had his issues with, his issues that ended up in the public with people talking about it, he offered Kathy Griffin his house for her to essentially stay in for as long as she needed to until the big brouhaha went over, So when the whole Trump thing was happening, like he made that offer to her, similar to what other people did, and that's one hell of a classy move for him to do.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so wanted to offer that little tidbit right there. And she also talked about, too, and they did show it in the documentary, I guess anytime any of his friends had a birthday, he would have it on a timer to where he would contact them every hour with some happy birthday message.
Aww.
Yeah, and she ended up showing a video that he had sent her. But, yeah, anyway... Pee-wee as himself, great documentary. Watch it with friends, right?
Yeah, watch it with your friends.
Yes. Any other thoughts for our friends at home before we wrap things up this week?
Nope.
All right. Well, each Monday we'll have something in this podcast space to entertain your ear holes. Until we meet again, we bid you adieu.
So long.
Why can't we be friends? 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 Subscribe to Friends Talking Nerdy
on YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, Spotify,
or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Goodbye, darling.